Well, hello and welcome to episode 65 of Thriving Empire podcast, where we're going to talk about how to set up your LinkedIn profile to attract more remote companies and to position yourself as the ideal remote worker. If you're new, welcome. If you're a regular, so excited that you're joining the show again. If you get value from this show at the end, I would love you to tell your friends and colleagues about it. And if you would rate and review it on iTunes, that would be absolutely awesome and help other people find the show as well. And also don't forget, you can work with me one-on-one. I actually offer 30-minute remote career consults one-on-one, where we put together a remote, bespoke job search strategy for you. Just head over to stephanieholland.co/career consult for more information and to book. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Setting up your LinkedIn profile. After we meet actually during the session, you're going to know exactly how to position yourself as the ideal remote candidate and the top 5 places to look for the right remote roles for you, and feel 100% confident to apply and kickstart your remote career. And of course, part of that is setting up your LinkedIn profile, which is what we're going to talk about today. So whether you have a LinkedIn profile or not, it's a really good idea to create one or spruce it up really specifically, because once you're set up, you have a really great landing page for remote companies once they receive your application, and a way to be discovered by companies actively searching for new talent. The LinkedIn search function is powerful for you and for remote companies looking for you. So let's get started by looking through the most important parts of your LinkedIn profile one by one. So first of all, your profile name. Now you have 2 input fields here, one for your first name and one for your last name. And you could use it that way, but why would you? I actually use these a little differently for myself. I use the first input field for my first name, last name, and a comma. And the second input field, I put remote marketing strategist. So my name actually shows up in every single place that I make a comment or post anything. It shows up as Stephanie Holland, remote marketing strategist. Now the first week I made this change, I started getting 835 search appearances. That's people actively looking for keywords. For example, marketing strategist. I appeared in 835 searches, okay, which basically is an awesome stat, okay, because prior to that, I think it was about 139. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? So use the name input fields wisely. The second area is the profile headline. So this is your who, what, why. So this is why knowing your passion, your purpose, and your vision, your own mission and values for your life and for your work and your career is really important, so that you can find the right role for you and attract attention from the right kinds of people and companies. Now, I've been experimenting with various formats of this, which is twofold for me, because not only am I obviously a remote marketing strategist, but also a remote career mentor, which is why I make all this content for you. And I actually use LinkedIn to attract companies and also mentees. So I have 2 headlines that I use depending on whether I'm actively looking for a remote role or not. For example, I'm going to share mine with you, but obviously don't copy them. That would be seriously irrelevant to you. Just use them to inspire you to create your own highly relevant headline that perfectly captures who you help, what you offer, and why. So when I'm looking for a remote role, my who, what, why is this: strategist and comms planner, helping game-changing brands magnify their message, profit, and impact. And then I have a little divider and I write 100% remote. Okay, that's it. But when I'm promoting my remote career sessions, my who, what, why is this: I help marketers find and succeed in a remote job to build a career and life simultaneously. Divider, 1-to-1 remote career consults. Another divider, Thriving Empire podcast. So you can use keywords, you can use dividers, and you can structure it exactly how you like. You can also use emojis if you want to. You can just make this your own. And you don't have to put remote in your headline. You can if you want to. Remember, companies are looking for the right talent, and most will be willing to onboard you and help you train as a remote newbie. Now, here's a funny quirk about this headline area. If you change your headline with the iPhone app, you get more characters to work with. I actually have an Android phone, so I don't have that luxury, but I actually like being forced to use less words because it keeps me more concise. But you can also borrow a friend's iPhone if you need more space for words, more characters. Okay, the third section is your about info. Now, this is where you can add a little more detail. I always start with a line or two about who I am, what I do, and why. So just kind of like lengthening the headline, adding more detail to what I've written in the headline. And in my case, it's working with companies either healing the heart of humanity or leaving the world a little different than we found it in some way. And then I have a line about why I love working remotely and the impact it has on me personally and for business in general. If you don't have remote experience, don't worry. This is where you get to show an interest in remote work, your reasons why, and emphasize why this is your priority right now. As in, it's the future of work, it's ushering in happier people and greater creativity and innovation, obviously. But if you think having this info on your profile would negatively affect your current role, just leave it out for now. You can instead emphasize it in your cover letter, which is obviously a lot more private. And then finally, I end with a 3-sentence paragraph on what kind of marketing I do, the kind of solutions I create, and what skills, traits, and attributes I bring to the team or could bring to the team. And then I also add a little line about my remote career mentoring, because that's also what I do. But in your case, that's totally irrelevant. So in this section, you'll really want to think about, peppering in some of the traits that we mentioned in episode 54 and the essential characteristics that we mentioned in episode 61, and also, of course, the skills you have that we mentioned in episode 60 that are relevant for remote work. So go back to all of those episodes, 54, 60, and 61, to kind of revise that and make sure you pepper your about section with that kind of info. And you can also check out my LinkedIn profile by heading over to stephanieholland.co/LinkedIn to see how I do this for myself. Okay, next section, your articles and activity. Now, I really think it's worth weighing in on some conversations about your field of expertise because, in this section, your comments, your posts, and your articles can be seen. And recruiters and companies do look here to see how you're interacting, what kind of dialogue you're part of, and what you're contributing to that conversation. So imagine if they read your really smart comments and ideas that you've contributed to current issues, themes, and trends in your industry from your professional point of view. So here's what you can do. Daily, you can write a thought of the day about your area of expertise. Perhaps it's a link and a thoughtful comment about an article you've read and why it's important, interesting, or maybe even incorrect. You can actually post up to 4 times a day if you want, but obviously once is the bare minimum. Also daily, you can actively search for topical conversations happening in your area of expertise via the hashtag in the search box. So you can weigh in, you can enjoy the conversation, be happy, positive, supportive, and share your opinion with confidence and compassion. And of course, also weekly, you could write an article that demonstrates your ideas, your experiences, and your expertise, and get really creative and just create really good content, okay? So that's that area, and I think it's really worth considering. Okay, so the area of your experience. Now, this is where you get to showcase your wealth of work experience, right? So in the last episode, I recommended creating a 1-page CV that showcases your 3 most relevant roles with a link to LinkedIn to view the rest. So here's where you can list every single role with a lot more detail. Now, for each role, you need to write what you did, but also specify the outputs and results you created. Now, remote companies really focus on output over hours, so you really need to showcase what you produced and what kind of results you generated and created for every single role. And of course, you've got to strike a balance between being detailed about that, but also brief so they can read all your experience really quickly. Now, there's a new function that allows you to specify remote as the job location, which is really cool for me especially. But again, you'll only use it if you've had remote experience. So all good, all in good time. Now, the next 2 sections are education and licenses and certification. So just make sure they are up to date and full of fabulous detail. And I think the last main section I want to talk to you about is your skills and endorsements. Now, this is where you can really fly with your skills. And, you can add everything you can think of, as this really helps your discoverability for companies and recruiters actively searching for specific talent with specific skills. Now, I've been super slack about asking for endorsements. In fact, in 2005, I had like 1 to 2 endorsements for each role that I'd ever had. And then I had a social media tantrum around 2015 and shut down my profile completely. Actually, no, it wasn't 2005. It was later than that. Anyway, when LinkedIn was becoming a big thing, I had a social media tantrum. I shut down my profile completely, lost everything. And then I created a new profile like 2016, 2017, and never got around to asking for endorsements or recommendations again. But I've heard that they are really important. Both of these areas are powerful. So ask a previous colleague or a manager to write one for you. Just have one for each role. Now, there are elements of the profile I haven't gone into, like photo, header image, but you're a grown up. You've got to use your best judgment about those kind of things. Be creative, show off your personality, your skills and experience in the best way that you know how. So get cracking on your LinkedIn profile today. Crack open worksheet 13 in the podcast study pack, which guides you through creating your special headline and about sections and gives you a checklist for the most important details to remember. And of course, if you don't have the podcast study pack yet, don't worry. You can grab a copy in the show notes at stephanieholland.co/65. So that's it from me this week. See you next week on Thriving Empire Podcast. But of course, until then, keep living and working on your own terms so that you can build your career and the life you really want simultaneously. I'll see you next week. Bye.